Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a Trump supporter, you need to support Kanye West. You just have to. And I'm telling you, just for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's going to help President Trump. Number two, he's probably more conservative on a lot of issues, including the Second Amendment, than you would think. Number three, Kanye West and President Trump will both pretty much obliterate and decimate the Democratic Party. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but it really isn't. When you think of what happens when they lose on November 3rd and they lose the popular vote, Kanye West is an independent thinker. You can say what you like about him. You can say, oh my goodness, he's just an artist, a musical artist. Well, he's a billionaire. He does not, it's not so much that he supports President Trump. He not only supports President Trump, but he was able to break away from the groupthink of Hollywood. He's big enough, and he probably would have done it whether he was a billionaire and world-renowned or not. But he's going to give President Trump the popular vote. He is world-renowned and famous and wealthy enough to not give a you-know-what about the Democratic Party or media or Hollywood. And that's why they're going after him and trying to disparage, demean, mock, denigrate him. You're already getting misinformation, but you have to support Kanye West. He can become president if he runs as a Republican in 2024. People laughed at President Trump. I'm telling you, he can become president. But he's going to help President Trump get the popular vote. If you look right here, this is an article. Can Kanye West actually make it on the 2020 presidential ballot? Kanye West will face considerable hurdles. Okay, so yes, he's missed about 6 deadlines, but he can still make the upcoming dates. He can still make to become an independent in Arkansas, California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, Iowa, Kansas, Maryland, Michigan, Missouri, Utah, Wyoming. He's already in Oklahoma. You heard that he wasn't running. Now you hear that he's going to be nominated. Hillary Clinton's going to be nominee. It's like ingrained in my mind. Biden is not going to be nominee. The whole thing's been the biggest charade of all time. But you have to, he's doing President Trump the biggest favor in the universe by running in 2020. First of all, he builds a base of support. Trump supporters are going to remember what Kanye West did, all 63 to 65 million Trump supporters. President Trump would have won the popular vote in 2016 were it not for Gary Johnson, who took 4.5 million votes. I have no clue how they ignore this. Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party took 4.5 million votes. Then you had Clinton outspending Trump 2-1. But you have Kanye West. You have an overlap between Bernie Sanders, Kanye West, and President Trump. And people who don't think that Bernie Sanders supporters voted for Trump don't understand Bernie Sanders supporters. I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. My articles went viral. I wrote 100 of them in the Huffington Post that all went through editors. Then you have, and then in Salon as well. Salon went to me and asked, whatever. The whole point is, and God bless the editors at Salon and the Huffington Post. Many of the Huffington Post editors are now like the Daily Beast and other places. But they gave me the ability to voice my viewpoints in a time when that was like the last moment of dissent on the left. My articles, my op-eds, my columns in The Hill. I was a contributor to the Huffington Post, Salon. I was able to say, hey, look, Clinton is unelectable. She still is. She's going to be the nominee. She's still unelectable. Trump is going to win. This is not going to be Biden. He would get the popular vote and win the Electoral College If it's Biden, even without Kanye West. But Kanye West just a couple hours ago tweeted a picture of himself on Mount Rushmore. He's serious about running. He's already on the Oklahoma ballot. Even if he doesn't make California and New York, the write-ins will be enough to tank the Democratic Party. Democrats are done. They think they're gonna win because they think the average American believes all their nonsense and their apoplectic, hysterical, fuming, seething, fanatical media coverage where everything is Trump's fault. 5 states, and God bless the people of these states, because I want them safe and healthy and happy, and it's unfortunate that their governors, Democratic Party governors, have mismanaged. 5 states, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Illinois, account for over half of all the lives lost and cases in the pandemic. Out of 50 states of 320 million people, you have 5 Democratic-run machines accounting for over half of the lives lost and half of the cases in the entire United States of America. It's not Trump's fault. So Democrats are playing a losing game. They're blaming Trump for the pandemic. They don't listen to him anyway. They say, oh, you can't take HQ because... and then CNN even then publishes a recent article on it. So they're all over the place. They don't... Look, Kanye West is going to give President Trump the popular vote. As it stands, if he is on the ballot in California and New York, with the write-ins, he might not, but if he's on the ballot, because he still has California, New York... if you can look at Ballotpedia, and he is, it's late July and August, or most of the states. But California, the only reason they won the popular vote is because Clinton got 4 million people more in California, something like that, 4 to 5 million people more. And she got 2 million people more in New York. Well, those are the 2 most liberal states aside from Oregon and Washington, but then she outspent Trump 2-1, and even with the 4 million more votes in California, Gary Johnson took 4.5 million of the Libertarian Party away from President Trump. What I'm trying to say, though, is there has to be more support, a great deal more support for Kanye West among Trump supporters. Tell your friends to, if you're watching this, most likely you're a Trump supporter like I am, most likely, or very likely, I should say, or perhaps, also, you at one point said Bernie Sanders is okay, all right, hey, he's great, he's fantastic, I'm voting for him because I want, back then, you wanted a foreign policy that was an anti-interventionist foreign policy with President Trump. That's one of the big reasons how Bernie Sanders supporters go from Bernie Sanders, who is a human doormat of the Democratic Party, doesn't know how to fight at all, to President Trump's foreign policy. I want Americans home. That is a bigger issue to me than climate change or anything else. Much bigger issue. It is the most immoral act to just... Democrats have infused morality. Their lives revolve around condemning others because they think their policies are morally superior. Well, there's nothing morally superior. In fact, it's a tragedy and a travesty and the most immoral thing to keep Americans in never-ending military conflict forever. And no, it's not Germany and Japan and bases there. Okay, the Democrats and liberals in general have zero concept of history. They care more about what you say on social media, and they don't care about Americans in regions of counterinsurgency conflicts, okay, where half to two-thirds of all the Americans killed and wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan were the victims of IED blasts. Okay, President Trump just signed a deal to bring home Americans from our longest-running war in Afghanistan. So that was in late February, early March. Do you think the left even cares? Do you think they care that he was the first president to step foot in North Korea? You think they care that he's the first? You think they care that he has funded historically black colleges and universities more so than President Obama? His administration has given more funding to historically black colleges and universities, and he signed legislation at the end of 2009 to increase and continue funding, because the funding ended, to increase and continue funding for historically black colleges and universities. He signed the First Step Act, which is prison reform legislation. So you have all this focus on, systemic injustices within our criminal justice system. President Trump signs the First Step Act. Biden helped write the crime bill, and like two or three of his potential vice president's picks were prosecutors. Okay, then the whole thing is a charade. Hillary Clinton's going to be nominee. Mark my words. It'll be the biggest political call of all time. You think that Clinton, even if let's say I've been wrong up until this point, Clinton's going to look at Kanye West and say, gosh, I think I'm going to just let Tales from the Crypt Biden, become nominee. No. The issue, ladies and gentlemen, is that President Trump is bringing home Americans from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. Militarized police, the left is like, oh, well, why do you think that has happened? It's because we've had never-ending military conflict for 20 years. You have to bring home Americans from places that are engulfed in military conflict for endless. So Democrats, that's why the Lincoln Project, they're all former Bush administration neoconservatives. That's why they don't like Trump. All of this from the Steele dossier that Clinton purchased, which is one reason why the Durham probe exists, to the whole Ukraine, how dare you even investigate Biden for actually saying, oh yeah, you're not going to get $1 billion unless you force a prosecutor out. All of this is foreign policy. Democrats don't, like, the media, liberals, people on Twitter, whatever, they don't really see it. They don't see the foreign policy issue. President Trump has reversed 20 years of foreign policy, which is basically Democrats and Republicans are two sides of the same coin. So when he removed soldiers from Syria, and he removed soldiers just recently in late February and March with the peace deal, okay, this is huge and enormous and paradigm changing, and he was the first president to step foot in North Korea, and he doesn't care about a renewed Cold War with Russia. Democrats can't even articulate why Russia is a threat to the United States of America. Because of Facebook ads? Because they're going to invade? What country in NATO are they going to invade? So they can't, they're completely clueless when it comes to foreign policy. And they talk Putin. Well, they're the ones who presided over the 20% of U.S. uranium capacity, so Putin can build you-know-what. And so they're all over the place. They live off of euphemisms because they can't actually speak in a clear and direct and concise manner. They constantly try to hide behind euphemisms, and if Trump actually says something, well, there's a dog whistle and subtext. They create and spin their own reality because reality is not enough for them to win. They're not running on policies. President Trump is. President Trump is running on his foreign policy, his immigration policy, his economic policy, his past accomplishments. We had record low Black and Latino unemployment. We had record low unemployment nationally. The media is apoplectic. To the average person who leans left, the world is falling. And the sky's falling, and everything's horrendous. They're the ones who say on the left, elevate the voices of people of color. Great. Well, Kanye West is running. Now what are you going to do? Then you see their true colors. Elevate the voices of people of color, but you better not vote for Kanye West. Believe women, but you better not believe Tara Reid. Russian interference, but oh my God, the Steele dossier was compiled with help from Russian sources. They're the biggest hypocrites on the planet. Okay? It ain't going to work, because on November 3rd, you're going to see, November 3rd is going to make 2016 look like a happy, like the day, the moment in the evening that Trump won, that's going to be like, oh my God, the happiest time for Democrats. If they lose, not only do they get 4 years of Trump, they get 4 years of John Durham, and the Clinton campaign people are already talking about that. They know what's going on because they have set up and framed Trump. So they already know what's going on. I'll tell you this: Hillary Clinton could win. If Trump does not take her seriously, she'll win this time. And it ain't going to be Biden, who looks and acts like an exhumed body. That just shows how utterly brain dead, and that just shows how how gullible and just the left is just a bunch of lemmings falling off a cliff, and they don't even care. They just, if you tell them anything, they'll just be like, well, the voices of authority, the pollsters and the media, and they say that Biden is the one. Well, Biden ain't the one. They can go ahead and say he's up 15 points. They can say he's up 30 points. He's not gonna. He would never defeat Trump, because the second you actually heard him speak, whatever fabricated poll numbers would have to go down. The polls are public relations ploys. They don't reflect reality. Clinton was going to win Texas in 2016, and the only reason then they fall back and they say, "Oh well, the polls were accurate towards the end." No, Clinton only won the popular vote because of Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party, and she outspent Trump 2-1. Trump has more people now, more money. About $50 million more on cash on hand, and you have Kanye West, who's doing this as a favor for Trump, and God bless him. We need a change in foreign policy, like a complete paradigm shift in President Trump. That's also why they went after Michael Flynn. All of this is about foreign policy, and that's the one thing that none of the left really talks about. They're so consumed with their warped paradigm and viewpoint on life. And it's interesting, too, because they don't go after Biden when he says, the Charlemagne comment, the you ain't comment. They don't go after Biden when he flubs and kind of the gaffes and everything, and the endless meandering and the absurd. There's like a million videos of Biden where you're like, oh my God, this can't be. That's because it ain't going to be. That's because it's not going to be. When you look at cornflakes, he defeated cornflakes, and the deal. He's, all men are created equal. The deal. We can go on forever. They're not going with that person because they would lose miserably. The average American doesn't blame President Trump for the pandemic, and the average American is going to vote based on his or her pocketbook. But here, support Kanye West. I'm not saying vote for him. I'm voting for President Trump. But the Democratic Party is so weak and disingenuous and sad and pathetic that a world-renowned artist will take votes from them. They haven't crafted, and they're so weak that President Trump never ran before he beat Clinton. I mean, Democrats think they're the smartest people in the room. They're really not. Look, they had 4 years to craft a message to black voters, to Latino voters, to Asian voters, to all voters. They had 4 years to craft a message. Instead, they focused on Russia, because their lives revolve around explaining why they lost and trying to save face. Then Ukraine. Then the pandemic that they blamed on Trump, which, by the way, most of the carnage is in Democratic-run states. This is according to the New York Times charts and data. And then 3 days before George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, by the way, notice how nobody talks about the senator, Amy Klobuchar, who didn't indict the officer that murdered George Floyd, didn't indict him. I wonder why she didn't. Democrats always just ignore the most pressing issues. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, just 6 years after Eric Garner was murdered by police in New York. So Democrats did nothing after Eric Garner, and they are claiming to do a lot of things for political purposes after George Floyd, because they don't. If they cared, they would have spent 4 years talking about these issues, police brutality. They're just talking about it now just for votes, and the left is like, oh, finally we've taken over the Democratic Party. No, you haven't. You're the ones being played. You're not playing the Democrats. They play everybody. They play Bernie supporters. They played me. They're going to play everyone. That's the one thing Kanye West is great at Trump, is that they're like, oh, okay, you wanna focus on Robert De Niro, and you want to focus on celebrity resistance Twitter, and okay, so we're going to come out and we're going to run now. And they're powerless. They don't have policies that people will vote on. They don't have a message that people will vote on and say, nah, I'm not gonna ruin this because Trump is the end of the world. Nobody believes Trump is the end of the world except, hardcore Democrats who read the New York Times and think that the New York Times writers are like the most virtuous and wonderful people. They look at U.S. history and say, "Oh my God, this person, that person." But yet, did you know that President Obama destroyed Libya? Are you gonna, with a failed NATO intervention, are you going to look at him from the vantage point always of a man who actually obliterated a country where people are being bought and sold now, and then he did it under the guise of a NATO intervention? Well, who runs NATO? Who do you think runs NATO? France? No, we do. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Support Kanye West in that, understand that he's doing something profound for the country, and he's doing something profound for President Trump and Trump supporters, and people of all different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, who don't think the Democratic Party should be leading this country. Democrats are the same as Republicans. Want to know how I know? Just ask the Lincoln Project. So when I was on the left, the Lincoln Project is has validated everything I've ever said. When I was on the left, I used to say, well, there's really no difference. The Republicans and Democrats, there's no difference, especially on foreign policy. I mean, there are differences, of course, but really, when it comes to never-ending conflict, military conflict, there's no difference. And we see that now. But anyway, give me your thoughts below. Kanye West, I love the fact that here's a man who is completely, just like President Trump, completely independent of anyone's influence, aside from his family's. And I love that. And I love the fact that he's basically giving the biggest middle finger to Hollywood, to the Democratic Party, to media. And he's saying, look, Kanye West is an independent voice, and it's interesting to see how Democrats react to a black man that runs for president that doesn't agree with them politically. So you have this emphasis on elevating voices of color, except if it's a person who doesn't agree with us. They're the most and then believing women, except if it's Tara Reid. So they're the biggest bunch of disingenuous phonies and liars. And they've spent 4 years just engaging in fantasies, and now it's coming back to haunt them. Because Kanye West is going, and Kanye West is Trump's friend, which is also fantastic. And Kanye West is going to literally take millions upon millions of votes from them. If Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party took 4.5 million votes, how many do you think Kanye West will take? Give me your thoughts below. Give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I have a very important segment on that right now, so check that out. If you want to support my voice long term, my Patreon, people, is below. Check out my live streams this evening at around 8 p.m. They'll start. I have 2 live streams in the evening. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be part of a newsletter, I'm starting my website, a newsletter. I'm revamping my website, so that's why it's not up. I've been revamping it for a long time, but if you email me at contactgoodman78@gmail.com if you want to be part of a newsletter.